NoSo Connection. Welcome to NoSo Countdown War Games number 16. JT and Chad here, your co-hosts on the Wrestling Warzone. Every other Monday on the NoSo Connection, we do both video and audio versions of that show. And Chad, we decided since we are in early 1997, we are the experts on this feed of the Wrestling Monday Night Wars era. We decided we should revisit the 1996 edition of War Games.
Yeah, so what you can do is you can pause this, you can go back and listen to our review and then you're done. So
Yeah,
thank
you're
you.
good.
Good night.
Thanks for watching. This is a cool project we're doing. Obviously, we're going through every War Games here. Big thanks to Ryan Gray for putting it together. And what we did as a team is really kind of do a pre-rank of these based on a series of match rankings and ratings using Cage Match, Dave Meltzer, Chad somehow got in here into the
All
metrics.
the experts.
Yeah, all the top dogs. And then as well as our tier ranker that we did for we did a tier ranking of all the war games. So we actually had this fifth of all, and this we only did the WCW war games. We didn't include NXT. So we had it as the fifth best war games when we did ours. Cage Match rank has this at a 7.65 composite out of 10. Meltzer, I think, is what sagged this down to 16. I think you and I would have had this much higher.
Yeah.
He had it at 1 3/4, which is absurd.
Crazy rating.
Yeah, just nuts. And so you and I guess we'll get to our grade in a minute because we had the same score, I think, on this thing here.
Yep.
When we did Wrestling Warzone. Actually, no, I was lower than you, so we'll talk about it.
Oh.
The build we covered in depth on our podcast, Chad. But are there any highlights that like stick out to you or hold strong about the build into this?
No, it was an interesting time. I mean, the NWO was still coming on strong. I thought the Luger recruitment with Flair and Anderson was very fun. Sting there was a lot of turmoil from that. So even though now in the podcast we're about 5 months removed from this, I mean this feels like in some ways a different world because it's like Anderson's retired, he's injured. Flair's been injured for a few months. Sting is completely in the rafters, and Luger's still hanging on. But that the WCW team, especially, really
very
changed.
dated.
Yeah, and that in some ways, in retrospect, I think that helps the match because it shows there was a lot of ramifications from this thing, whether intended or not. I mean, some are real life situations, but it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Flair pretty much was out since this. Like he goes out pretty quick after this because I think by Havoc he's on the shelf. So, this is pretty much the end of his initial run and issues with the NWO. And then, of course, it was the week before we had the Sting in the parking lot, getting in the limo, and then you roll all of that build right into the show where they don't trust Sting. We learned, of course, the NWO had a fake Sting. The real Sting does come out late in the match and cleans house and then walks off. And this really begins his issues where his own friends and WCW family did not trust him to not jump ship. And that ends up costing them a lot over the next few months, honestly, for the next 14 months. But we're at still on Wrestling Warzone the next few months, at least at this point. Sting is still not returned. He's still not really taken a stand as into February. So this one ploy, this one trick by the NWO leading into this match, like sets WCW up on a crash course of just losing their top franchise guy for a while. So it was and honestly, looking back, it may be one of the most effective things the NWO did was this fake Sting.
Yeah. This is the last time he's I think before he goes pretty much to the all black with the white face paint look.
Well, does he do that one promo the next night that we were even surprised he had done?
Yeah,
that comes out.
he does the promo. So
and I think the match itself was pretty good. I mean, I don't think it was too far off from like Bash of the Beach with the 3-on-2 thing, right? So we kind of get that same vibe. The Outsiders are good in a situation like this. Arn, obviously, like a War Games workhorse. So he's going to get in there and put on a good show. Luger was red hot. Comes in cleaning house. He's even hotter in '97, but Hogan coming in, there's a great section of this match where the crowd is losing it when Arn and Luger just beat the shit out of Hogan. Because to this point, too, with the NWO, Hogan hadn't really gotten anyone on his, had gotten their hands on him in a significant way. He fought Giant at Road Wild, but that match wasn't much, and Giant and Hogan wins. This is the first time I felt like two WCW guys are kicking the shit out of Hollywood Hogan.
Right. Yeah, I thought in rewatching the match for the podcast, I thought it did a good job of kind of melding together the classic War Games feel from the 80s and 90s, sort of your Horseman War Games template, with a more modernized angle and stuff, kind of chicanery going on with the NWO. And they formed a very cohesive match. It was more cohesive and at points violent than I had recalled on previous watches.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's up there with the more modern war games, right? We don't get the real blood and guts of the early war games by this point. So I think this gets pretty close, without actually having that level of violence that you get in the 80s and early 90s. So with the finish, we had fake Sting comes out. Everyone, of course, buys it till the real Sting comes out. Real Sting cleans house, tells his teammate to go fuck off. I'm out of here. NWO Sting locks a Scorpion Deathlock on Luger while Hogan's choking him, and Nick Patrick calls for the bell. This is before he's fully outed as working for the NWO, but it's pretty obvious. But I thought overall, this is pretty well done. The heat was good. The Sting swerve was well done. I like Tony being regretful that they didn't trust Sting when they should have. There was just a lot to digest in all this. Of course, then after there's a lot of stuff too, right? Where Luger's crying for Sting, Savage is out, he's backing down Hogan. The NWO kicked the shit out of him. Liz is begging them to stop. They spray paint Savage. You got Bobby is almost crying at the end that if they would have won if Sting didn't leave. So this is so early in the NWO angle that the stakes were so heavy. These guys still didn't know what this was all about. Are they going to fire everyone? Are they going to beat the shit out of all of us? So they take these losses to heart.
Yeah, and it's so, like you said, there's so much kind of moving parts around this time where you already had DiBiase, Giant turned a couple of weeks before this match, Six, he's around. So they're adding people to their ranks. Then you have this NWO Sting that, the tricks, Nick Patrick. And even if you look like something that's not revealed for a couple of months, but you could argue that you could see the strings pulled at this point, was the Bischoff effect too. So I think there's a lot at play here with this match. It's this match is really a fulcrum match. I think this to me kind of ends chapter 1 of the NWO story. I think it ends with this match, and then you kind of get the chapter 2 probably. Maybe even up to about where we're at with the Piper Hogan title match and what happens with that at a Super Brawl. And then we'll go from there. But this feels like kind of a end of one sequence of the NWO, the first part, and into the second part.
Maybe the Havoc. I'd say here to Havoc. Havoc is still kind of a little bit. I think Piper's debut at Havoc is when this phase 2 starts, because I think Hogan eradicating Flair here, pretty much Sting, and then Savage are kind of the original trio of guys that were trying to take down the NWO. Luger bridges it, but I don't think you're far off. I think it's within this month that phase of from their debut to that. So I think this match met the hype. I mean, the hype was big, obviously. It's since Bash at the Beach is really the first major clash of both sides. Again, we had some stuff at Hog Wild, but this was the first real throwdown of all the groups. Looking back at my grade on Warzone, I think I went 3, which feels lower than I would have expected, but you had it a 4, right?
Yeah.
So, whatever, 3.5, 3.75, somewhere there, probably composite for us.
Did you really go that low? I don't know.
I'm looking at my actual grades. Yeah, I went 3. You actually went 3.5 on.
Yeah, I think in retrospect, it's one I like more since we did the podcast. you know, I think it's a very good match. I don't think it's a classic War Games, but I think when you look at it, it's a little bit of an aberration when you look at the total list of the 23 or whatever.
Right.
It feels like a different one, but it's a worthy addition.
And we had a top 5 when we ranked them all, so I
Yeah.
guess, but that makes sense. If we have it composite around 3 3/4, 4, a top 5 probably feels about right. There's
Yep.
only so many. We know there's a couple that are like 5-star matches, right? But after that, there's that drop in that.
Yeah, I
Too,
think
so.
this is a good one in kind of your tier 2, tier 3, whatever. Top
Yeah.
of tier 3, bottom tier 2, whatever.
All right, well, listen, check out everything we have to offer here at NoSo Connection on YouTube, on audio, on any podcatcher app. You can search NoSo Connection. We have content just about every day, including this War Games NoSo Countdown series. So tomorrow we'll get into our 15th best match, different hosts rotating in and out. Be sure to check out Wrestling Warzone. Like I said, it's every other Monday at 11 a.m., both on YouTube and any podcast app. We are in early 1997. We're really hitting the good stuff now. We suffered through a lot, but we're really hitting the hot stretch. Raw's War is going to be upon us, so we're hitting some really fun stretch of the war. Probably the most, I would say, over the next year of Warzone is where like they're the most even is promotions, like as far as quality of programs. So a lot of excitement there. All right, we're out. Talk to you soon.